Live on stage, we have the hero of Shanghai, the Shanghai hero, because at the beginning of the corona epidemic, or the corona situation, to put it in neutral terms, he very quickly came up with a therapy that he had been using for some time, high-dose vitamin C treatment, and was able to achieve massive healing effects, massive healing successes. He didn't lose a single patient, and he was able to show that even in serious cases of COVID, where it wasn't clear whether the patient would survive, he was able to show real-time improvement. After vitamin C was administered on an ongoing basis, the patient stabilized, their lung function stabilized, and the government in Shanghai then recommended his approach as the official treatment method fairly early on at the end of March. The question, of course, now is, what is the actual result? This therapy method is well known. Why is it that it is hardly ever used in our countries, and mistakes are still made in treating coronavirus? We both have a mutual friend, Dr. Thomas Levy. So we were able to establish contact with Dr. Cheng, had him in Swiss Biohealth News in our interview. Now, when things changed here as a result of coronavirus, he said, I still want to come. I don't want to be put off. I want to come here and give my presentation personally. And we already had wonderful discussions the day before yesterday over dinner. And we discussed much more than just vitamin C. He has an enormous knowledge, particularly with regard to anti-aging. He knows very well what is important, so I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Rick.
Professor Cheng on stage.
Thank you very much, Dr. Volz.
Very good to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my honor.
And the next hour, the stage is yours.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you again, Dr. Volz and the staff. And it's a beautiful country, and I'm so glad to be here. And I wish I could be here with many other excellent speakers previously. And I was very excited after I received this invitation, because what I'm going to do today is just to reflect on what I have been learning, and basically how I can live healthier and live longer. To answer your question, you've been asking every speaker, how many years we can live to, and that's what I want to know. And that's, yeah. And, so like in the email, I asked what I should be talking about. Now, here is a list. I'm going to touch a little bit, because I think these are important. A few key points. Basically, the first one is I want to talk about anti-aging. What is anti-aging medicine? The way I understand it. And then what is the difference between the classical traditional Western medicine today practiced in hospitals, and also what is anti-aging medicine or other complementary alternative medicine? What's the main problems? What's the main differences? And then, of course, I'm going to highlight the chronic diseases prevention and treatment as being the anti-aging, the key point. Then I'm going to, I think we already talked about, many speakers talk about oxidative stress and mitochondria. Those are the two key areas of a main mechanism leading to chronic diseases and aging, and how I feel about it. Finally, I may talk a little bit about cancer, which I mentioned yesterday, as a metabolic mitochondrial disease, and how it highlights the importance of mitochondrial functions. Now, the way I understand, first of all, we've been asking how many years can we live? Can an average human being live? Well, they've been doing epidemiological studies. Actually, it's not that hard to do. We know how many years a type 2 diabetes will cut people's lifespan short, and how many years cancer will cut short of our lifespan, cardiovascular diseases. So by doing these studies, you can calculate that if you don't have any of these diseases, then how many years you can live? Well, the answer from those studies is that probably anywhere between 115 to 125, 130 years. That's why I say 120 years. And there's a recent paper by Jan Weich. He was from the TNO in Netherlands, where the laboratory I visited when I was young. When I was younger, I'm still young, I think, 20 years ago. So basically, that's how we feel 120 years is probably the age we all can expect to live around. But then, how many people that you know have lived to that age, or in other words, how many people you know or in your families, friends, they die of no diseases? Probably zero. We have read about people living to 110, whatever, but we probably never met anyone. Well, the point I'm making here is that nearly everybody, the vast majority of us, die of chronic diseases. So to me, anti-aging medicine, the first task is to prevent and reverse or treat chronic diseases. Okay, so that because nobody lives to that age. Okay, only after we have managed to treat and prevent chronic diseases, then we can talk about the true anti-aging. And what I mean by what I define as the specific definition of anti-aging is that if we don't die of these chronic diseases, eventually people will still die. Why? Actually, Eric and we had this discussion last night. He asked a question and I got stuck. Well, because we ran out of stem cell. Because, everybody, we all in our blood cells, in our hair, in our skin, every day, nearly every day, we have to replace what we have lost. And we lose hair, we lose skin cells. And the repair mechanism or replacement mechanism comes from stem cells. Eventually, we will exhaust our repair capacity. Well, then he asked the question, why? Well, I don't know the answer to that. And that's genetics, yeah. So eventually, in the specific sense of anti-aging is what truly defines the aging limits. That's when we talk about stem cells. And to me, telomeres is important, but to me, and we had discussion with Kurt yesterday, it's still a sign, a process of aging, not the true root cause that I'm going to discuss next. Yeah. So to me, there's the general sense of anti-aging and the specific sense of anti-aging. Before we talk about any specific anti-aging molecules, I think we should talk about chronic diseases. Okay. Anti-aging for us, it's not a miracle drug issue. It's more of a variety, daily lifestyle thing that we need to do. So that's in the red, I highlighted over there. If anyone tries to sell you a miracle drug, think twice. So we actually already talked about it. Yeah. But I want to pause and think about it again. You can't expect to live a long life by popping a pill. You have to make some hard choices in your life. You have to get out of your couch to go exercise. You have to eat healthy and all these other things. These are hard to do, but you have to do it. Now, next, I want to reflect a little bit on what's the problem, the shortcomings in the traditional medicine, the Western medicine we know of, and why all these anti-aging medicine, alternative medicine, the functional medicine or integrative medicine, these alternative medicines. Basically, here, this is from a paper I just submitted. Evidence-based medicine, EBM movement started back in the 1990s, and along with other, anti-aging medicines, these movements. Basically, there are a few issues here, and I'm not going to read the slide. Two main issues. One is what makes the evidence. Yeah, we all agree. We need to base our conclusions on evidence. Evidence medicine, nothing wrong with the term. But what is the evidence? And that's the problem. Now here I list a few lines here. Now, if you look at some of the studies that Johns Hopkins has published, well, basically, there are 4 levels maybe, it varies, but 4 to 6 levels of evidence. And randomized clinical trials is one of them. And of course, that has the heavy weight. However, expert opinion, personal experience still is part of the evidence. Be honest with you, I didn't really know what the true definition of evidence-based medicine is. Why do I say that? Is because through this COVID period this time, when I started talking about vitamin C, doctors always ask me, do you have RCTs? Well, yes, I have some RCT. I will show some later. But the point I'm making here is that nearly every doctor or scientist or layperson, when they think of evidence-based medicine, they think of RCT. That's a problem. We do not truly understand what is evidence-based medicine. And I want to remind people in our audience to really seek definition of evidence medicine. Our expert opinion is part of the evidence medicine. However, most people don't understand this. Now, that's number one. Number two, in Johns Hopkins, some of the studies shown here is that, for example, a 2015 Hopkins study showed in the 2006-2014 period of time, the RCTs funded by NIH, basically US government, has decreased by 24%, whereas those funded by the for-profit industries have increased by 43%. Nothing wrong with making money. Perfectly, we need money. I have nothing against money, okay? And also, this is not the problem with these for-profit industries because, when they invest money to do RCT, they expect to turn a profit. Nothing wrong with that either. The problem is, a lot of these things that are good for our health, for public health interest, because they are not patentable. We can't patent a diet. We can't patent vitamin C. Therefore, there's no interest, financial interest in doing large-scale RCTs. What happens is that more and more RCTs are done for a financial interest. And therefore, and as you can see here, the interest of these public health things, basically the RCT evidence is being biased. That's the point I make. So when the evidence is biased, then the conclusion from this RCT cannot be correct. And that is, I'm not saying it's anybody's problem. It's not drug industry's problem. It's not vaccine companies' problem. It's the way the world works. And this is a big problem, much bigger than us. But I just want to point out that problem there. And also here you see another study by the Hopkins University in 2000, I think it's the same study. Basically, 2000, that's the number 2 right there. Basically, out of 1,500 cancer articles in major journals, of course, in that year, 2015, there are more papers. But of the major papers, 1,500 cancer research studies, papers, 1/3 is, basically has an interest, conflict of interest. That's kind of problem that we have in our evidence. So this is part of the issue in our system that shows evidence-based medicine has problems. Okay, so of course, in our mankind, what we need to do is to figure out the problems and hoping we can improve to make it better. That's what we're trying to do. The second problem I want to point out is I call it Nobel Prize mentality. What does that mean? We need a basic research. There's no question about it. We also need a clinical research. Clinician, we have to treat patients. So there's no problem there either. But the problem is basic science and clinical science are two totally different disciplines. In basic research, we need to separate, dissect complex problems into smaller, more definable issues, and then study precisely. However, in clinical medicine, we can't simply employ one theory into clinical. We need to treat the whole patient. That's the problem here today in clinical medicine is that we begin to see, you see cardiologists, endocrinologists, they look at very specific areas, they forget the whole body. Okay, so basically, in basic science, we make bigger problems smaller and study. And in clinical medicine, we integrate all these small studies into one. So these are different mentalities. Unfortunately, today, we more and more are employing these basic research mentality into clinical medicine, and that's a huge problem. And as you can see here, I'm not going to read this, and I'm sure the slide will be made available to people. Basically, this is Mr. Nobel, and I don't think that's what Mr. Nobel intended for his Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine. And so basically, this is a study by the research committee. You see, over the 100 years of Nobel Prizes awarded to clinicians have been steadily declining. Early on, the clinical medicine has been, you can see there, from 60 to 90% to clinical medicine, but it has been steadily declining. Now it's about 20%, and that's a problem. And unfortunately today, those people who write clinical guidelines probably don't really practice medicine that much anymore. And those of us that are like us, we're practicing, we don't get to write clinical guidelines. There's this dichotomy. And that's another major problem in evidence-based medicine. And these are the problems. I'm not, like Dr. Vogt said, we're not conspiracy theorists. We're just looking at the existing problem. Hopefully, we can get to the mainstream doctors to understand we work together, we can improve. We make better. We all want good things. We all want health for public, for the general public. So, because of these problems, and many, because for myself, why did I get into? I've been a physician, an internist for over 40 years, and I never thought about these things. Also, anti-aging and medicine was just some sort of gimmicks and selling some fancy products. And we all need a CME, so I started going to anti-aging conference in Las Vegas. Then I realized, wait a minute, there's something meaningful here. So the whole purpose at the very beginning for me is to see how I can make myself healthy. I'm telling you, I've been going there probably 10, 15 years, and I feel a lot healthier than before. So basically, here is a list of different names of these complementary alternative medicine disciplines, anti-aging medicine, also molecular medicine, and I've been tightly associated with, integrative medicine, functional medicine, natural medicine, just to name a few. To me, these medicines thinkings are more or less similar if we truly understand it. And so here is the summary I have. I think the key difference of these complementary alternative medicine is we begin to adapt a holistic view of health and disease, not just one area. And also second is natural view. I think somebody mentioned here. Basically, my view of natural medicine is what makes you healthy? Is it a drug? No, obviously not. Oftentimes I use an analogy. I said, if I drive a Honda, if it breaks down, I need a part. And so I'm ready to put in a Honda part. Now here comes in, well, I'm in Germany, I'm not sure if it's appropriate. Here comes a Mercedes-Benz part. The Honda is too low class. Here's a Benz part. Would you want it? Probably not, because you don't need a Benz part in the Honda car. So this is the natural view. What I'm saying is our body is way too complicated. In the urgent acute care, I had this conversation with Dr. Vogt. Today's hospital is for acute care. If you get acutely sick, yes, you need to go to the hospital for a temporary fix. But for chronic maintenance, probably we want to go back to natural, the way our body naturally is. So I begin, if anything that's not natural, I think twice. For long-term use, I become worried because we just don't understand what these unnatural molecules will do in our body, right? And the third view is the balanced view. One of the professors I heard yesterday talking about America, yes, you see on the street, Eric and I were talking about this too. Here, I don't see too many obese people. That's great. But in America, particularly I'm living in the South right now, where it's nice, life is slow, weather is warm, but you have a lot of obese people. You will see one of my slides showing a curve. But in the United States, you see endocrinologists adjusting for diabetic medicines. You see oncologists, cardiologists fixing their heart problem, the blood pressure problem. But they ignore this huge weight problem. These patients oftentimes carry 30 pounds, 50 pounds extra weight. I tell them, look, you lose that 30, 40, 50 pounds, your diabetic medicines or your drug medicine preparation, you will be cut in half or maybe gone off. I've had, but I don't know how many patients I have helped to get rid of medicines. It's actually diabetes is easy to treat. Just go on low-carb ketogenic diet. It's not that big a deal, but we'll talk a little bit more later. Anyway, so to me, in health and disease management, we have to have these three views: holistic view, natural view, and balanced view. We have to look at the whole body, not just one area. Oftentimes, it's a trade-off. You have to make the patient healthier, but overall. This is my summary of the disease, how I understand. We all understand, this is common sense. All diseases, not only in medicine, in nature actually, everything has root causes, or every problem, and the root causes going through certain processes and eventually present clinically as disease symptoms and signs. So this is how I begin to think of disease and medicines. And on the left panel, you see 1 and 2. These are what I call root causes. External, which is the outside, you have toxins. That's the major problem. We talk a lot in this conference. Chemical toxins, physical, we talk about EMF, and the biological, the corona, the COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. These are external causes. Oftentimes, these are out of control. We can help, yes. We can wash hands, we can wear masks, do things, but unfortunately, the big picture is out of control. Then you have the internal individual root causes. These are the things what are modifiable that we can do. So these are unhealthy lifestyle, stress, sleep, exercise, diet, hormonal balance. Yesterday we had one professor talking about hormonal balance. So these are the things are what we can do. And some of them are very hard to do, genetics. I have a PhD in genetics, in molecular biology, but I'm talking down on molecular biology because I think we've talked too much. Why? Yesterday was somebody mentioned that because you can't change your DNA sequence. Yes, you can change your epigenetics, yeah, but you can't change your DNA. And so here, these external or these root causes go through processes. And the processes eventually lead to clinical manifestations. I listed a few here: oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, and the number of mitochondria decreasing. Those, in my view, are key ones. Of course, leaky gut. One doctor talked about GI. Many more. That's very important because all the toxins mostly coming through the gut. That's so critical. And for physicians out there, if you look carefully for any chronic disease patients, I have never seen one chronic patient doesn't have GI problem, if you look carefully. That is a serious problem. And here I listed leaky gut, dysbiosis, and genetic mutation. And I should put in there telomere. I think, to me, telomere shortening is part of the process. Of course, these processes further contribute to clinical problems here. Clinically, we see cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, depression. So basically, this is how I view, Dr. Vogt mentioned, actually complex issues eventually come down to very simple things. The problem I see as traditional Western medicine today is that we view every disease as a separate disease. Actually, I'm going to spend a little bit more on that concept, COVID-19. Yes, it's a brand new disease. I'm sorry, Dr. Vogt, you mentioned not to talk. I don't talk too much about it. The focus I'm on is the understanding of the disease, and also how we can build what we are missing in COVID-19 management. That's the point I want to make. It's hard not to talk about it. That's the problem. And so that's how I see. Basically, what I'm saying is that whatever the diseases you see and whatever the diseases and the root causes are, oftentimes they follow the similar pattern here. So we can learn a lot by studying these patterns and then apply these things to new diseases. Why do I say that? Eric and I had this conversation. I didn't put a slide here. Is that we all know epidemics and pandemics are on the rise. I'm sorry to disappoint you. We are not done with COVID-19 yet. We're in the middle of it, but COVID-25, whatever, will be coming again. And I hope, we will not repeat what we have been seeing in COVID-19 management. But unfortunately, if we don't act, that will happen again. Next time we will panic again. The whole world will be locked down again. Mark my words. And I'm not sure if we can change that, but that will happen. And so a few slides talk about, I here just the highlight of the I just mentioned. For example, using cancer as an example. I'm going to talk a little bit later. We all know more than 90% of the cancers we say are caused by carcinogens. We agree? And also the predominant theory of cancer today is still genetic mutation theory. So basically every cancer doctor is talking about genetic mutations. And of course you don't talk much now, and you begin to hear more immunotherapy. But what's the basis for immunotherapy if you don't understand what disease is? You're still randomly hitting, trying. But anyway here, so if we agree, which we all agree, most people, that cancers are mostly caused by carcinogens, but why you don't hear any oncologists or doctors looking for carcinogens in any individual patients? Have you seen any cancer doctor doing that? Maybe I am one of them, a few of them, not too many. So here is one example. This is one of my patients. You see here heavy metals. At this diagram here, it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, I guess. You see, this is pretty common if you look for. You see these cancer patients have, I have a few more slides after, per Eric's discussion. I had 4 or 5 slides last night after wine and Cheng. But so the point I'm making here is that carcinogens cause genetic mutation. Oh, I'm sorry. Carcinogens cause genetic mutations, and which in turn cause cancer. And clinical medicine today, we focus on genetic mutations. We don't look further. How can you treat the disease? We know diabetes is one of the best studied chronic disease models, and everybody knows it. Let me just borrow this slide a little bit again. So basically, it's a little bit busy slide. It's hard to read, but let me just explain briefly. The bar here is the zero, is time 0 is when a patient is diagnosed of diabetes. How do you diagnose diabetes worldwide today? I guess most people is still by the fasting sugar and postprandial 2 hours after a meal sugar going up. Right? That's still how we diagnose the diabetes. However, on average, 10 years prior, minus 10 right here, 10 years earlier, if you start looking for, you will see the increase of insulin. Okay? So basically what happens here is that because mostly, actually it's more complicated. Sugar is only a clinical manifestation. Actually, diabetic patients oftentimes have heavy metal toxins, a lot of poisons. But anyway, so most of these diabetic patients have too much sugar coming in, and so their insulin has to overwork. And early on, they are efficient. They are able to control the sugar under normal. So if you check a sugar level only, you will not see diabetes. You will not see insulin resistance. So basically, these poor beta cells have been overworking for about 10 hours. Eventually, they get exhausted. So Dr. Volz, do not overwork your staff, because eventually they will be exhausted. It's just kidding. So that's how we have been exhausting our beta cells for 10 years, and then they start quitting. And that's when you see insulin levels begin to go down and sugar level goes up. And this is a pretty typical pattern for nearly all chronic diseases. And unfortunately, the Western medicine today, we are only looking at the superficial level, at the clinical level. And we need to dig deeper. In anti-aging medicine, that's our point, is that we want to go to the root causes. Not only we need to treat clinical manifestations, but we also need to look at the processes and particularly the root causes. And that's what I call a holistic or integrated view. Another point here, very critically, is that nearly, I can say it's all. As an internist scientist, usually we tend to avoid these absolute terms, all. But here I want to say, I think all chronic diseases go through a reversible to irreversible or hard to reverse stage. So here, a lot of research out there showing that by the time of a clinical diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, probably around 2/3 of your beta cells are irreversibly dead. You cannot rise the dead. Okay, that's the problem. Of course, fasting, that's why I do fasting these days, is probably you are able to have some regeneration, but are they going to be clinically significant? Not sure yet. So that's the key point here, is that all chronic diseases go through reversible to irreversible changes. We'd better start early and look earlier. Now, so here early on I already made about anti-aging, the disease, my understanding. So this is a brief summary of how I go through a lecture or patient. Basically, there are a lot of things we can do in health maintenance and disease treatment. But we have limited time, limited effort, and limited funds. So what we can do? Here is the list from of the importance and also the cost. Lifestyle changes actually is nearly free. Actually, you can save money, I think. You don't go out to the fast foods all the time. You don't drink Coca-Cola, drinking water. Water is probably a lot cheaper than Coke, right? So basically, I always start talking about lifestyle. It's very critical. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, making sure I don't run over time. And secondly, is the key pair of issues is the nutrition and anti-nutrition. So nutritional balance, I listed a few of the very important ones: vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium, antioxidant, we all know. And toxins. And of course, toxins, you have metals, you have chemicals, EMF, somebody showed. I looked into that, the Faraday cage, and but I also measured my home's EMF was low, so I live in a suburb, so that's not too bad. And then basically, living a healthy lifestyle and nutritional balance, we'll talk a little bit more later, and gut health. Like I already mentioned, gut health or unhealthy gut is observed in nearly every chronic disease, and that's key. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't really pay attention to it. And then once you have done these, hopefully you could also look at the hormonal balance, which a doctor yesterday mentioned a lot, and regenerative medicine, stem cell transplantation, and the others. So that's the process I go through. And here I want to spend a few minutes talking about diet. And let me see, I'll put it, okay. Well, about fat. I think fat is, actually a doctor earlier talked about, I think that he's from the sports nutrition. Anyway, so the natural fuel for our human body, I think, I agree, is fat. Now, we have about 4 types of fats in us. We have structural fat, for example, fat in the brain. Some people call you fathead. Yes, you are. We all do have fat. But that's the fat we don't want to lose. When you try to lose weight, you don't want to lose your fat in the brain. And we have the subcutaneous fat, under the skin. I'm sorry. Under the skin, which is where we store energy, which is normal. The problem is the visceral fat, the fat that you don't want, in the belly usually, in the waist area. And also brown fat. Babies have more, we have less. But if we expose to cold, and we probably tend to have a little bit more brown fat, that's thermogenic, and that's good. Anyway, so we have about 4 types of fats. And here, so the question here is that oftentimes we see a type 2 diabetic patient. If they miss a meal, they often feel they display hypoglycemic symptoms. They feel dizzy, lack of energy, they want to sleep, right? The irony here is that type 2 diabetes tend to be obese. They have a lot of energy stored in their body. But why, when they miss a meal, they will have no energy? I always use the analogy, you're like begging for food with a golden bowl, right? So that's the problem. Here, what I want to highlight here is that type 2 diabetic patients, why do they develop diabetes? Is because of many years of having too much sugar. Our body, we store energy mostly in the subcutaneous fat. And the energy storage and release is supposed to be bidirectional. We are supposed to store energy when you eat, and after you eat, you're supposed to release the energy. This process is supposed to go back and forth multiple times in a day. But look at today. How many people, you know, we eat 3 meals a day. Oftentimes people will eat snacks in between and maybe an evening snack as well. So many people, particularly in America, is that we burn our calorie from the food. And we store energy into our subcutaneous fat, and we never get to release it because you don't need it. You don't need to release your stored energy. You are getting the energy from food all the time. Now, so if you don't, we all know, if you do not release energy from your subcutaneous fat, your receptors, all these things on fat cells will be downregulated. If you don't use it, you don't need it. So eventually, what happens is that if you miss a meal, your body doesn't know how to release fat energy from your fat cell. That's how these type 2 diabetic patients begin to have hypoglycemic problems. So that's one point I want to make is, so this is not only applicable to diabetic patients, it's applicable to everybody. So I hope most of us, we should all go to try to retrain our body. Now, think about it. I'm looking at the camera. If you miss a meal, you develop hypoglycemic symptoms. You may be having this energy releasing problems. You may be on the way, or you may already be insulin dependent or on the way to develop diabetes. The question is, I often make a joke. I say, yeah, we all look nice, fancy. There's a nice shows in a fancy building. But we forget we are animals. Yes, we are intelligent animals. But when we talk about medicine, we're not much different from wild animals. How many animals in the wild do you know are having 3 square meals a day? None. Why? Because we're not built to eat 3 square meals a day. Our body, humans, are built to, when you get food, you eat plenty. And you may go days or even weeks without food. But don't worry. It's okay because our body is able to do that. But after, at the highlight correlates with that picture I saw earlier, about 10, 12,000 years ago, when agriculture started showing up, then we have abundant food supply, people begin to be lazy. And a lot of problems started from showing up. That's one problem. So the 2 main issues here I want to mention is that the major fuel for our human body is fat, not carbohydrate. Our body doesn't store sugar mostly. We store on average about 500 grams in the form of glycogen in the muscles and in the liver. That's about 2,000 calories. On average, and actually for a man, we burn even more than 2,000. On average a day, if you fast a day, all the glycogen is gone, all the sugar is gone, practically. So, but we have nearly unlimited storage space for fat. You have read, we all read I have my patients, among my patients, heaviest is over 600 pounds. That's a lot. That's like 300 kilo. Am I right? 300 kilo, yeah. That's very heavy. Of course, on the media, you have seen those like 1,000 pounds of heavy people. So basically, the key stored form of energy is fat. But why would you? So our body is like a biofuel system. It's like an electric fuel car, right? You can burn on carbohydrate. It can burn on fat. But mostly, it's the fat, not sugar. Okay, sugar is the quick cash. So that's the problem. Is that I want everybody, we all should go retrain our body to burn fat, not sugar. Okay. Personally, I used to, if I miss a meal, I feel lethargic. Yes, I used to. And I've been doing intermittent fasting, low carb ketogenic diet for at least 5-6 years. I playing badminton 3-4 times a week, 2 hours each time. Oftentimes I don't eat dinner, I go play badminton. I don't feel hungry. I play 2-hour badminton. I don't want to tell my age, I'm still young. Last time I counted was 38 years ago. But anyway, so I don't really feel hypoglycemic when I play badminton with missing a meal. Why? Because I think I have successfully trained my body to release fat. Okay, and I test my urine from time to time for ketone. They are almost always positive. So the 2 messages here is that the main fuel for our body is fat, not carbohydrate. Number 2 is that we need to retrain our body to be able to release fat. If you miss a meal, you feel hypoglycemic, you may have a problem. You'd better go start training. So we already talked about it. And here, now here, just show you, we need evidence. Let me just show you one study. I'm sure you all know about this. This is a study published last year following 359, yeah, right here, 159 diabetic patients, simply by going on ketogenic diet or low-carb diet, no medications. These are all diabetic patients. And actually in 1 year, but the study finished at 2 years. Basically, about 54% of those patients went off diabetic drugs. And nearly all of them have had a weight loss. Okay. And we have been doing this in our clinics, both in US and in China, routinely. And so that I mentioned earlier, actually helping a diabetic patient go off medicine is not that hard. This is something I feel, because I one time had this conversation. There's this big shot in Shanghai, endocrinologist, and he's a member of the Chinese Science Academy. He published a paper in New England Journal of Medicine talking fancy mechanisms of diabetic drugs reducing hypoglycemic agent, basically, the fancy mechanisms. I asked simply, I said, well, if you think the problem of diabetes is sugar, why don't you just cut out the sugar from the diet? You don't have to go through all that messy, fancy mechanism. And that's what we have been doing. Yeah. So don't forget, do not focus on those mechanisms. They are just processes. Not that big deal. Shoot for the root causes. And like I mentioned, this is one of our patients. Actually, this is a short lady, she's less than 5 feet short. And she, at the beginning, she was 310 pounds. That's 150 kilograms, right? Yeah, pretty heavy. Anyway, in about 13 months, she lost more than half of her body weight simply by going on low-carb diet. And well, this is actually, that's me, the skinny one, and was one of my friends. The point I'm making here is that we have very similar exercise. We play badminton together, and we've been playing badminton for about 10 years now. And but he just doesn't want to listen to my dietary advices. And I always joke on him. I said, I'm making you famous everywhere I go. Now in America, in Asia, in Europe too. But anyway, what I'm saying is that his weight hasn't changed, and I've lost weight. The key here is exercise is important. I advise it, but in terms of weight loss, exercise is secondary. Dietary control is primary. And this is, I don't think I talked too much about this carnivore code, which we talked about it over dinner 2 days ago, and we have published in Chinese as well. Maybe a few key short notes here is that I didn't notice. Basically, plant-based foods, some of them are toxic. We all know, poisonous mushroom, all these things. But what I didn't realize is actually the poisons in plant-based foods actually is more of a phenomenon. It's more general than I realized. And the idea here is that in our world, we have two types of lives, right? We have the animal kingdom, we have the plant kingdom. And the animal kingdoms, animals, we can defend ourselves by kicking, biting, running away, but the plants can't. So how did the plant kingdom develop these defensive mechanisms to protect themselves? Poisons. Okay. And so it's more of a systematic issue than in the isolated issue. And I think it makes sense. After I realized that, I begin to shy away from vegetables and plant-based foods. And I guess we will probably just stop there. Now, what I want to mention here is that we're talking about nutrition and the poisons. I think I should hurry up a little bit. So toxins are a major problem. Without toxins, and if we have a balanced nutrition, we all probably can live 220 years. And so in the toxins, maybe we just talk about glyphosate a little bit. Because of time, you all know very well. I'm very happy to hear Switzerland is probably one of the few or only countries I heard you ban GMO, which is great. And unfortunately, in America, in China, GMO is a major problem. So here, a few slides talking about, I'm not going to go into details, the glyphosate, the toxicity. Glyphosate can cause a lot of problems. Actually, glyphosate is everywhere. This is a 2019 article they tested in in basically all those grain products in our food. And that's one. I advise low carb diet for two major reasons. The first reason I already talked about earlier, it's about sugar. The second reason actually is to avoid grain-based toxins, particularly glyphosate. And this is, I'm going to go over quickly. These are just some of the studies showing the very wide range of toxicities of glyphosate and the mechanisms and the diseases that it can cause. A lot of problems here. All these other diseases it can cause. Let me just show you a few of the patients that I've treated. Very impressive. This is a lady, middle-aged lady, Dawn, in Columbia, United States. And when she came to see me, basically this patient had 6 months of skin rash and was abdominal pain. And so basically she went to skin doctor and a GI doctor. She had a CT and of the abdomen and also biopsy. Couldn't get any problem, didn't find any what was the problem. She came to me. After listening to her for 10 minutes, I think I figured out. So basically what I told her was to go on a complete ketogenic diet, avoid all grains. And also, the way I understand, this is part of the autoimmune disease, okay? The main problem with autoimmune disease, we had a doctor talking about autoimmune disease. The way I understand it is that normally our body is isolated from the environment. We are not supposed to, our body's immune system is not supposed to be exposed to the antigens in the environment. We are not supposed to have these immune reactions because our body is separated from the outside with skin. And the skin extension, which is the gut and the pulmonary lining. But the problem is because of the toxicities in our food, our gut in particular has been disrupted. So we begin to see these eruptions, what we call leaky gut. Basically our lining, the scientific term is more of a gastrointestinal barrier permeability. So that has been increased, the permeability. It's becoming leaky. So a lot of these larger molecules in the environment which are not supposed to be in our system, they begin to be able to leak through into our system, causing autoimmune reactions. So the root causes, in my view, of many of these autoimmune diseases are probably at the gut. Okay, so if you know, and that's number one. Number two, autoimmune reaction is oxidative stress related. It's inflammation. So what I do is, number one, avoid. So I advise the patient to go on a grain-free diet. Absolutely, at least a couple of months usually. And so only eating, hopefully looking for organic animal products, fatty foods. And also, I put these patients on a lot of high dose of antioxidants, particularly vitamin C. And also, glutamine is another one. And what I use is a so-called our own package of total cell nutrients. It includes vitamin B, antioxidants, mitochondrial nutrients, all these things. So basically, these nutrients are there to suppress the oxidative stress and also to repair the GI membrane. And so this patient, for 1 month later, and you see a dramatic improve. And on the right side is 2 months later after I returned from a trip to China, and she was very happy. And 6 months she sought everywhere and couldn't find anything. So this is just one of them. And this is a vitiligo, very hard to treat disease. A longtime friend of mine, 45 years of. So basically, he mostly went on just the low carb plus vitamin C. I don't know about Western literature, I didn't check it out, but in China, in the Chinese text, there's a saying that vitamin C is contraindicated in vitiligo. I said, look, I treated this patient with vitamin C. This is 1 year, July 28 and to July 19. This is not the only one. And skin rash, more or less the same. And this is a very interesting patient a couple of years ago. This is a sailor, and he had a widespread total body skin problems. And in my view, it's again, whatever in the environment. I use the same approach, a ketogenic diet with no carbs at all. And vitamin C. Well, vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant. Antioxidant. It's a powerful a toxin neutralizer. And it's also a powerful, we know vitamin C is a collagen builder helper, because I had to hurry a little bit. Anyway, so this patient will improve dramatically. And this is psoriasis. It's very hard to treat. Psoriasis, I've treated many cases. It's not that hard to do. In Western medicine, there's no treatment, but I've treated many of them. Okay, and so I'm going to skip a few. Basically, here are some tests. This is the environmental chemical contamination. This is another test of this. Oh, wrong one. Okay. This is the toxic metal, environmental chemicals, and here are the products of oxidative stress, basically oxidized products of DNA and lipids. You can detect all these things in these patients, and of course the oxidized DNA lipids are usually not detectable in average people, but this is a cancer patient. So here you show every cancer patient that I have, they have elevated heavy metal and environmental toxins. So detox, gene detox is very important in these patients. And well, also I want to mention briefly that this is a homemade toothpaste that I've been using for years. Our commercial toothpaste has a lot of poison in it. If you have anybody, particularly in dentistry, if you have people complaining of canker oral sores, you may want to ask them to change it's very simple to make. A coconut oil mixed with baking soda to the right mixture, the mixture you like, make it like a paste. You can add a flavor if you want, menthol, lavender, whatever. Just brush. I've been using it very well. I mean, for a long time, you know. So now we mentioned about oxidative stress mitochondria. Because of time, let me go through quickly. Now, I promise not to talk too much about COVID-19. What I want to make, because of the time problem here too, is that if you look at these studies, this slide highlights the problems in respiratory viral infections. This is a nice review of 2018. Practically all viral infections of the lungs show this increased oxidative stress, basically elevation of free radicals, as a common mechanism. Okay, so viral infections are not that dangerous, not that hard to, not that scary. The main problem is elevated oxidative stress. So if you use high dose, sufficient dose of antioxidants, vitamin C in particular, for example, you should be able to block a lot of these diseases. And that's why you see, you mentioned about Thomas Levy. Dr. Levy's Primal Panacea, which I found very impressive, we translated and published in China, and that's part of the reason a lot of people know me, is that why vitamin C shows effects in almost every viral infections. This is the reason why. COVID-19 is no different. And that's this is the message I hope we can deliver, is that COVID-19, COVID-25, COVID, so whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you understand this point, this is not only respiratory, it applies to hepatitis or these others. So if we recognize this, we will be able to know why antioxidants work. And that's the message. And so let's not to go, here is the literature. Vitamin C, many people already know this, vitamin C in ARDS and key pathology COVID-19. I'm not going to go through this. And what I want to point out is that vitamin C blood level is highly deficient in critically ill patients. And a study about 10 years ago in the United States among the children, half of the US children, about 40%, are low in vitamin C. And here is my vitamin C packet for the afternoon. I had my 5 grams in the morning already. So this is a common feature. A Spanish study published, I think I listed here, no long ago, last month, maybe in September, showed 17 out of 18 patients with ARDS, severe case of COVID-19, shows undetectable blood level of vitamin C. Right? So the last one, number 18, also very low. Yeah. So vitamin C is very critically deficient in these patients. Not only vitamin C, vitamin D, and we know very well about here. So So and here are some of the studies. Actually lots of evidence. We at the beginning of the presentation I mentioned people ask RCT. Here are the RCTs people don't want to read about. And some of the Chinese results you already know. I'm not going to mention, but just mention the this is not published yet because no major journal wants to accept it. That's a problem, and they found all reasons. But what I want to show you is in the Wuhan study. The COVID-19 54 patients. The good news of COVID-19 management in China is that it got controlled quickly. The bad news is the study couldn't be continued as planned because we ran out of patients. But what we see here is the IL-6, an inflammatory marker, went down significantly with high-dose vitamin C. And also, well, this is probably not statistically significant because on the left panel, it doesn't show significance statistically. On the right panel is for the very severe, the SOFA score very high. It's a measurement of multi-organ damage. And it shows promising impact of high-dose vitamin C. And so anyway, so the rest of the story vitamin C can prevent common cold or these other things. So the message here is that let me just vitamin C here I want to say vitamin C is very safe. We talked about it. This slide. So the question here is that I showed a couple of slides. I didn't go into detail, and the audience can read it. Hopefully we can have it online in detail. Vitamin C is effective against oxidative stress, against viral infections. That is proven. And in Europe, you have European Food Safety confirming that as well. And also, another question is vitamin C is very safe. This is not just any one expert. This is repetitively stated in the official document at NIH. National Cancer Institute publishes regularly a physician data query, PDQ. And I just checked a couple of days ago. The most recent update, actually updated here, is on October 13, which is more or less the same. So in that official document, it says, of course, here are some of the major literature, is that high-dose vitamin C is very safe without significant side effects. What does high-dose vitamin C mean? It's up to 1,500 milligram kilogram body weight. So for an average, let's say 60, here we have some bigger people, but for a 60 kilogram body weight, that's 90 grams. 90 grams, okay, very high. So very safe. So if it's something is safe, it's probably effective, they may not agree, and also it's very expensive. I don't see a reason why don't we use it. So that's what I say, that somehow the conventional medicine, we miss the common sense. Okay, so let's skip that. With a few more minutes, I just want to talk about mitochondria a little bit. So lastly, okay, here. So we talk about oxidative stress. Oxidative stress, actually here I want to say one more word. This is very interesting. And Dr. Thomas, I'm heavily influenced by Thomas Levy. I didn't see him did he speak yesterday? He already talked, right? Dr. Thomas Levy?
Later in the afternoon.
Oh, later, okay. Anyway, so I heavily was influenced by him. Is that actually our life, what is our life? We are alive because we have ECG and EEG, right? What is ECG, EEG? Electricity. So life essentially is electricity. What is electricity? Flow of electrons. So in biochemistry, in chemistry actually, what is flow of electron? It is oxidation and reduction. So life in essence is oxidative stress or is redox. So if you think this way, that makes it very simple. Is that health and disease? The essence is the balance between reduction and oxidation. And that's why oxidative stress is at the center of all diseases, in my view, or the toxins or antitoxins, or the nutrition and toxicity. So this is how I protect myself. And I take a lot of vitamin C. I, on average, take about 10 grams or 10,000 milligrams a day, a couple of times. And vitamin D, when I travel, I take 10,000. Particularly right now it's winter, no sunny. And zinc, when I travel, I take 100 milligram. And I plan on, when I return back to the United States, I come down a little bit. Magnesium and hydrogen peroxide. Unfortunately, they don't allow me to carry on to the airplane. That's too bad. But I wish I could. Hydrogen peroxide is a very interesting thing. It's a disinfectant. So when people, well, let's not get into politics. But anyway, so these are the things I take. Very safe. Mitochondria. A few minutes, let's talk about mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse. And that's an important part, is I think we have been all focusing way too much on the DNA. And I guess it's okay here to say this, use an analogy. I said in the United States, if the White House gets shut down, it doesn't really bother my life. Actually, in my 34 years staying in the United States, I think White House got shut down like twice, the federal government. It didn't bother me. However, if the electric company in my neighborhood got shut down, well, I get into trouble because I don't have lights, my refrigerator doesn't work, I don't have Wi-Fi. So that's how important. I think we've been looking too much into DNAs. We miss mitochondria. I think this is more important. Mitochondria not only generates power, we all know it regulates the key functions of a cell replication, autophagy, mitophagy. Okay. Now, the importance of mitochondria, let me use a few slides of cancer to highlight. Cancer, we believe, is a mitochondrial disease rather than a genetic mutation problem. Here is a list of the cancer problems. Cancer is far from being solved. This is from American Cancer Society. As you see, the new cases and also deaths from cancer continue to rise, no matter how they promote, how they advertise the success of cancer treatment. These are the hard facts, and we didn't make up. Cancer remains a problem, unsolved. And here are some studies in the past. 2004, a large study from Sydney University studying the effective, 5-year survival data of cancer patients in Australia and the United States. They found major, cancer drugs didn't have much impact on the overall survival. About 2-some%, which translates into about 2-3 months. Expensive, painful extension of 2-3 months life. That's 2004. And 2017, a British study of the National Cancer Drug Fund, they found similar results. Basically, 2/3 of the patients didn't have any effect from these FDA-approved drugs, cancer drugs. The remaining 1/3 showing about 2-3 months extension. This is nature, but this is the UK study. In the same year, 2017, there's a published worldwide. They found 85% of the drugs are ineffective. And so basically you have big data. These days we talk about big data from United States, Australia, United Kingdom, and worldwide even, showing chemo drugs are not that effective. And this genetic mutation we all know. And we know, so basically the theory of genetic mutation is that one gene, cancer gene, one or few eventually become many. And so they started genome sequencing. That's what one was at NIH, 2000 and 1990s. But unfortunately, they turned over every corner, every stone. They didn't find the cancer genetic genes, driver genes. And that's the problem. So there's nowhere else to go. And this, I don't know if you understand, I'll be done. Basically, this is a series of studies done in 1980s, nuclear transfer study. The green are the normal cells, the red are cancer cells. Basically, if you transfer the column 3, the third column here, if you put cancer nucleus into normal cells, the offspring cells are still normal. These cells have cancer genes, but they don't behave as cancer. In contrast, if you put normal cells into normal nucleus into cancer cells, the offspring show as cancer cells. And so putting these things together, actually more, Dr. Warburg, we all know, and I'm not going to time. This we know is mitochondria. Here on the right side is a glioblastoma mitochondria showing abnormality. Actually, the more abnormal of the mitochondrial morphology, the more serious cancer usually is. So putting all these things together, we know, we believe mitochondria is the key area of deficiency, of course, caused by, we know, actually, again, it's carcinogens. Carcinogens not only can oxidize DNAs, but more likely they can attack mitochondria. Nuclear DNAs are in the nucleus. They're also usually bound by histones. They're well protected. It's very hard to attack White House, but it's a lot easier to attack a local electricity company. Of course, that's still hard. But the point is, carcinogens not only can damage DNA, more likely they can damage mitochondria. This is the book Dr. Thomas Sifi published, which we translated and published in China, and now it's getting more and more popular there too. Here are a few cancer patients that we treated with this metabolic theory. This is 90-year-old now. He received, make a long story short, prostate cancer, almost dying, and went on ketogenic diet. There was a few cancer, basically glycolysis blockers, and he's well and kicking. And he's riding his electric scooter around town every day. And this is a cancer woman from Hong Kong, breast cancer, widespread, and dying again. And she has been receiving this. Actually, cancer has been shrinking. When she was diagnosed 4 or 5 years ago, she had lung mets, she had the liver and the spine. Now all those mets are mostly gone, except one small nodule in the liver. And here's a cancer actually in Norway that I've been consulting on. This is the longest actually. Now he's going on 9 or 10 years now. At that time he was 26 years of age. He had large cell lymphoma in the mediastinum. And this guy is very smart. After 2 rounds of chemo radiation, he was so painful. And the doctor explained to him about PET scan, because PET scan, we know about cancer absorbing mostly sugar for many years, because that's the principle of PET scan. But anyway, so he felt, well, if tumor cells like sugar, so if I don't eat sugar, maybe I'm okay. He didn't know about Warburg at the time. Later on, he checked on the internet, he found out. Anyway, so he went on ketogenic diet. And 3 or 4 years ago, he came to me, and I started adding other things. And about 2 years ago, he's cancer-free now. So here's my tips to improve mitochondria: healthy diet, intermittent fasting. Fasting is very important. Exercise, mitochondrial nutrients, or the relaxation, sleep, we all talked about today. And thank you very much for. Sorry for the over the time a little bit. Yeah.
So, Richard, thank you so much for your amazing
thank you,
lecture.
thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was really very, very good. And you, you saw that we stopped the clock. Because we wanted to give you some more minutes.
Oh, thank you very much.
For your amazing lecture, so that you finish everything in time. The nice thing is that we have again today our friend Dr. Mossetter here, and I think since I'm a dentist, I've of course some questions as well. So please. As you know, we're working with vitamin C infusions in our patients now for many years, and in our chat we had just a minute ago some questions regarding how do you personally, when you're traveling, of course, you won't take the IV. You take it orally.
I take it orally, yes.
Yeah. So you have trained your system that you would be able to take more than 1 or 2 grams?
Actually, definitely more than that. The 1 or 2 grams is just baby dose, Basically, we have these vitamins in 5 grams per packet. Very easy to travel to take with. And I usually put them 1 packet in the glass bottle. Make sure you use glass. Don't use plastic, I think we talk about it. Don't use metal because it turns rusty. And I use a glass bottle. Yeah. And I usually drink 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. When I go play badminton, usually I put 2 packets. That's 10 grams. I finish it over the back. Vitamin C, the more the better. You can overdose, except having diarrhea. Actually, that's called a vitamin C flush. Yeah. I use vitamin C flush intentionally to treat certain conditions.
So normally they say orally you can't take more than 1 gram. This is...
Well, that's true, yes. We have a GI absorption problem. If you take too much, we basically will show up as diarrhea. Yeah. So that's called a bowel tolerance. When you reach bowel tolerance, it means that you cannot take more. But I use that phenomenon for a few things. For example, if somebody has a food poisoning or acute allergy, for example, people eating shrimp or crabs, they may have a problem and have diarrhea. I said take a lot of vitamin C until you have diarrhea. Because why?
Okay.
Not only vitamin C will flush your system.
Okay, so you could use it as a cleansing as well.
Yes, yes. We have constipation. Two things I use. Vitamin C first, because we are low. And two is adding magnesium. And Dr. Thomas Levy will tell you, because I learned from him. And basically, vitamin C and magnesium are the two, mostly deficient nutrients that we use a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you say about liposomal
vitamin C? Yeah. That's very interesting, actually. Yes. There's one study I found interesting. If I had a chance, I'd like to pursue further. A very smart guy, actually, I think he's in Britain, British. Basically, if you take vitamin C powder hourly, if you don't have access, to IV, if you take every hour, you may be able to achieve a blood level of vitamin C as high or maybe even higher than IV. Okay. And of course, there's only one study. But it's interesting. Liposomal vitamin C, most of studies showing that you can achieve a blood level of vitamin C probably between IV and oral. So yes, if you can take a liposomal vitamin C.
Okay, okay. So if you would have access to the IV like me, so I take personally every week 30 grams, something like this.
Great.
So what would be the dose, what you would recommend for a healthy person just to keep the blood level?
That's the similar dose I give to my parents. But vitamin C, basically vitamin C at a lower level, it's an antioxidant. At a higher level, it's a pro-oxidant. And we all know vitamin C we can use to treat cancers. I use vitamin C to treat cancers. That's the dose actually from National Cancer Institute, 1.5. Actually, I know a lot of doctors go above that level. Okay? And so basically, if it's too high, now what's the dosage? We don't really know. On average, in the International Society of also molecular people, and we seem to have a consensus that under 30 maybe antioxidant, above 30 maybe pro-oxidant. It's kind of general sense, but we don't really know for sure. But normally, I give to my parents 20 grams every month.
Okay.
Oh, no, every week.
Every week?
Yeah, every week. This is for health man, or some doctor may call it collagen buildup.
What is the age of your parents?
84.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I want to add is that my father was pretty happy. Next time, if we have a chance, hopefully we can talk about atherosclerosis. Yeah. We all know coronary calcium score, basically the calcium deposits in the coronary artery, is one of the best predictors for heart disease. We don't have to wait until your blood vessels become narrowed, because that's already irreversible. So by this CAC research has been done like 15 years ago. It's pretty much accepted, generally accepted, if we know the literature. Of course, in clinical medicine, it's not widely known. Most people don't know it. And what I'm making is I took it, my parents took it, my father has 0 calcium. At age 80, the chance of having 0 calcium in your coronary is nearly 0. Okay, so he was very happy, and he trusts more and more of what whatever I do is really doing for them, and nobody else. If other people, my kids begin to trust me a little bit more, but they didn't used to. And my parents and I, we've been taking this every day.
Yeah, we know from the studies of Linus Pauling and Cameron, they've received the Nobel Prize. So they installed in untreatable cancer patients every day 10 grams. So what would be your recommendation in any cancer patient to immediately start with a high dose IV vitamin C therapy?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Vitamin C actually in cancer patients, there are research that shows that, of course, we don't really have these very convincing, hard, solid, large data to show that IV vitamin C can prolong patients' life. There are data, for example, what you mentioned. However, this is generally accepted. IV vitamin C can improve life quality of cancer patients 100%. The way they usually use is between chemotherapy, so-called in a mopping method. So basically, chemotherapy drugs are all toxins. And so they give toxins to kill these cancer drugs, cancer cells. But of course, these cancer drugs stay in the system for a long time and are causing a lot of side effects. So one theory there is that you receive chemotherapy for 2-3 hours, then you come to next door clinic, you receive high dose vitamin C and other antioxidants. So the idea is that to mop up these toxic drugs so that you don't have, so patients feel better. So that's another way. That's pretty popular in Japan. And the IV president, Dr. Yanagisawa, the president of ISOM, a good friend of mine, they do a lot actually.
Okay, so you would diagnose by cancer, instantly install a clip, so you would have permanent access. And you
well, of course, if they believe, yes,
every day, 10, 15 grams.
Oh, more than that.
More than that?
Oh, I usually shoot for top of the maximum dose.
Every day?
Oh, no. Usually 3 to 5 days. Yeah, the problem is that it varies and depending on the availability and.
So you would go in a person like me, you would go up to
you're a healthy person.
60, 70 grams?
No. That's for cancer patients.
Yeah, I mean in cancer patients.
Cancer patients, I go to 100 usually. 100, 150,
2, 3, 4 times a week?
Actually, there's the cost issue, but normally probably 3 times a week is about.
I mean, it's
average.
not so expensive. If you compare it to the.
Yes, I agree.
It's
not expensive.
To the official cancer drugs, it's nothing.
There's other concerns about the administration. For example, the Norway patient I mentioned about, and I advised high dose vitamin C, and he couldn't get an IV done. It's illegal in Norway. He couldn't get the things imported. He had to fly to Las Vegas. Actually, some of the countries here in Europe are a little bit more restrictive. So there are these other non-medical things to consider. So whenever possible, I do advise to go on high dose. And of course, you want to watch out for, because these, vitamin C IV solution is balanced with, oftentimes with sodium bicarbonate. And so sodium can become a problem. Sometimes these patients may develop swelling or these things. So these are the things you need to watch out.
Okay, I believe we've got some more questions. So
come on in, please.
I have to. Okay, so
it was a pleasure. I loved your talk.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Thanks a lot. And we tried to integrate this since 15 years, and I have first, great. Second, so our favorite in prevention is the liver. So we integrated metabolic markers. And what do you think about the liver? So from our point of view, so the ALT and the gamma GT, we want to have them low. So we want to have them on 25 instead of 40 because that integrates insulin. Then we go to measure HOMA index because many clients, their glycated hemoglobin in the beginning is not that bad, but so on price of cost of a high insulin. And liver prevention, that's the first question. Second, so what about metabolic markers like liver and HOMA index and insulin for all clients? Because then eventually, if the markers are good, we would be able to prevent cancer. So then we would be able to start the medication in the early beginning, and then it's reversible. And the second question, so that's about the silent inflammation in the small intestine. Many people suffer that, and then the diversity of the microbiota decreased. And for that reason, in many clients, in addition to ketogenic diet, we give advice for prebiotics or probiotics. How important, in your view, is prebiotics?
That's an excellent question. Because you see some research that's showing probiotic doesn't work. Now I begin to wonder why. So I think this dysbiosis is again a process. Whatever in our food that's killing our bacteria, if we don't get rid of it, then whatever the probiotic you take will be killed by this. So the first thing I usually like to do now is vitamin C flush, because vitamin C actually kills bacteria. We talked about hydrogen peroxide because bacteria, virus, cancer cells, they don't have catalase. They don't have the hydrogen peroxide degradation enzyme. our normal cells do. So if we take hydrogen peroxide, that's why hydrogen peroxide is safe, is because our cells it doesn't hurt our normal cells, but the cancer cells, they will kill it. Okay, and that's part of the mechanism of high-dose vitamin C kills cancer cells. Now, for our body, I like to use people with the gut problem. I advise high-dose vitamin C flush regularly, maybe once a week. And the idea there is to kill off the bad bacteria and then place some ketogenic diet, hopefully organic. Well, the idea is that, of course, if you can use probiotic, the idea is that to allow the normal healthy bacteria to grow.
To come back.
To compete, yes.
Attract them to come back.
Exactly, yeah, because they grow very fast, So that I think is probably better because, I didn't go into detail of this carnivore diet theory. There's a lot into it. When you eat healthy, normal fat, normal bacteria grow back. Because I never have any problem with my bowel, because like I said, I'm very low on carb these days. To answer your first question, liver, I have helped many patients with fatty liver improving. The fatty liver, the way we all know is basically it's too much fat in our body, because our body cannot release and metabolize fat as fuel. So when you go on ketogenic diet, you burn it off. One reason ketogenic diet helps a lot of people lose weight, I found for most people, is because fatty meats, not many people can eat a lot of fatty meats. Okay. Oftentimes I use this example. In China I use this because we know fat has 9 calories per gram compared to carbohydrate that's 4. So fat has twice the calorie. And I tell people, I say, look, if you eat this much of fatty pork or beef fat, it's hard. Many people can't. But that's only about a small piece of bread. So if you eat this much, I'm telling you, if I eat this much fat, I may be able to go on 4 days without feeling hungry. But if I eat this much bread or rice, within 2 hours, I'll be hungry. Similar amount of calorie. So that's one major reason why people go on ketogenic can lose weight, is because the total calorie. I don't agree with this concept. A lot of people say the amount doesn't matter. Amount matters. That's one of the basic principles in thermodynamics. Energy cannot be destroyed nor created. If you eat 3,000 calories, I don't care what quality it is. If even it's super quality food, if it's 3,000 calories, you tell me if you burn only 2,000, where do the extra 1,000 calories go? This is science. If we can prove I'm wrong, I'm telling you, you will not only win a Nobel Prize, you will win 10, because you're overthrowing the foundation of science. That's not possible. We're all smart, we're not that smart yet. So amount matters still, yeah.
And that what fits in. So that's the last question to the fructose. So our biggest enemy is carbs and sugar. Now that's clear.
Yes.
They hit the mitochondria, they kill the gut, they kill the microbiota, they kill the brain. But so then fructose is a huge enemy for the liver.
Yes.
And so the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in the United States, 40% of people suffering that. So most important to reduce that. But in our country, in Europe, still a lot of people have the idea, I have to have an apple juice, an orange juice, which is so bad. How do you explain to clients to kick that off?
Well, the people ask me, hey, Dr. Cheng, don't you find your life boring? You eat only meats, only fat, boring? I say, no. Here's my message. I said, for example, you mentioned about milk, only drink good milk. Yes, I agree. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying we don't enjoy alcohol. Alcohol, we begin to see more and more research showing alcohol by any amount is not good for you. But we live a life, right? So when we enjoy, I'm looking forward to the gin tonic, if that's there. So the point I'm making is that on average, regularly, we try to live a life, daily life. You live out of 7 days, maybe 6 days, we eat to live. Il faut manger pour vivre, right? I do speak a little bit French. But maybe 1 or 2 days in a week, we eat to enjoy a little bit. While you enjoy, you don't indulge. That was crazy when our kids were young. American ice cream, right? I get 3 bowls and, wow, that's good. I want more. I always go back to get more. That was crazy. It went on for a long time. So now, occasionally, I still enjoy a little bit, but you don't have to enjoy that much. eat a little bit to enjoy. Because, for example, I don't feel I'm missing anything. So we need to, this is one last thing I want to tell the audience, I don't know if they can hear me, is that I tell every patient of mine now, or my audience, is that we need to change this relationship. We're talking about this, Traditionally, patients think they can do whatever they want, eat bad food and don't sleep and whatever they want to do, and they get sick, they come to the doctor, you give me a pill, you cut me open. And if you can't cure me, that's your problem. That's wrong. I think we need to change that mentality. I tell patients that, look, you are an athlete and I'm a coach. I can help you to analyze your situation. I can provide you with equipment and tools, but I'm sorry, you got to practice. Because if you don't practice, you're never going to win a prize. And that's what I think the message you have to take. Yes. They have to take the ownership. Health is theirs, it's not ours. We can help them, but if they don't want help, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and I still remember saying when I was some many years ago, some decades ago, I was a vegetarian. So my mother told me vegetarians will not live longer, they just look older. So that was her saying. What I'm using that to, I believe it should never become a religion, because if it becomes a religion, what we do, and if we are going for 100% strict diet, it's causing stress. And we know the killer number one for all disease, for all chronic disease, is stress. So I totally agree that we should 80% of the time of the week, we should go for a quite strict lifestyle and diet. But the other 10 to 20% we should enjoy a little bit too.
Your mother was very wise. You talk about religion.
I mean, we see Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
He was one of the richest person in the world. And he was vegan. He was just never drinking alcohol. He was just drinking water. He was slim. He was doing exercise, and he died in the age of 55. But he was the most stressed up person we know. So,
talk about religion. Actually, I have a nickname among my medical schools. They call me the chief of VC ketone religion. Because I've been preaching for like 5-6 years, and at the beginning they were ridiculing at me and laughing at me. Now more and more people begin to say, well, actually it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well balanced.
We have some more questions from the audience. One is if there is a specific form of C, if you would say ester C, is it, so that is something we use, and we have found out that if you go with ester C, you could kind of train your system. So I started to have maybe after 4 grams diarrhea, and then after several weeks, so today I'm able to take 10 grams without suffering from diarrhea.
Really? Quickly?
So, quickly, yes, just. And so is there, or you just take just the regular vitamin C?
I hate to tell you this. According to Dr. No, that's not Klein, Cathcart. Basically, the amount of the vitamin C you can tolerate is correlated with the toxins in your body. So the higher vitamin C you can tolerate without having diarrhea, that indicates higher toxin levels. And actually, this time of COVID-19, I was treating COVID patients in Shanghai. I have seen that. I have seen patients taking 70 grams, 100 grams of vitamin C without going to diarrhea. And
orally?
Orally, yeah, because it's hard to find people to give you IV vitamin C in China. So that's that.
Okay, another question is, have you ever seen any problems with the kidneys when you go for such high doses of vitamin C? Or
well, actually, that's an excellent question. So there's this rumor, basically saying that one of the major concerns I think most people have is vitamin C and kidney stones. Now, there have never been studies to confirm that vitamin C causes kidney stones. Okay, there are the two probably major studies. One of them I think is from Harvard, following, I forgot, 60 or 80,000 people, and for 10 years or so, for multiple years. Basically, what they found was these are the surveys, epidemiology surveys. Surveys only show correlations; they cannot prove anything. Basically, what they saw was a twice 100% increase in the possibility of having kidney stone. Now, if you look at the data, which I did and analyzed, what that means is that ordinarily, if you take that vitamin C, your chance of getting a kidney stone is 1 in 2,000 years. And if you take, ordinary, if you take vitamin C, the chance goes from 2,000 to 1,000. So that's one study. Another study from Europe, I forgot which country, similar, large, many years and, tens of thousands of people. Basically, that shows that vitamin C prolongs, basically shortens the mortality rate of heart disease and cancer. So basically, I said from these studies, if you believe in their results, one says you may have chance of a kidney stone. It was 1 in 2,000, now it's 1 in 1,000. And on the other hand, you may live twice as long if you have disease. Which one do you prefer? So those are about the kidney stone. Now, what I want to say is, we didn't go into today, is that those people who are prone to develop stones, not just kidney stone, and also gallstone, other stones, they may have too much calcium in their body. Dr. Levy will talk about it. And a couple of things, One is inflammation. Kidney stones, these patients almost invariably have high level of oxidative stress, number one. Number two, they may be on calcium supplements. Don't take calcium supplements. Don't take vitamin D fortified milk, because that's too much calcium. And also cut down, going back to the vegetables, the high oxalate containing like spinach. A lot of vegetables have a lot of oxalates in it. So cut down on those. Those other things may be able to help those patients to reduce. Actually, vitamin C, I can show you there's research. I wrote a paper on this, is that vitamin C reduces kidney stones.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in addition, so that was the question, so related to proteins and kidney insufficiency. But all these clients, high in sugar, so they suffered early stage of kidney insufficiency because of the sugar.
Yeah.
And because of that sugar, so they had a deficiency in potassium. And for that reason, it was dysregulated before they took the vitamin C. And then many of those clients who took proteins, and then they talked about kidney insufficiency. So the biggest killer for the kidney, so that's sugar, because they kill the cells 10, 15 years before the diabetes type 2 is diagnosed. So for that reason, we have to figure out that. Yes. So they have to reduce sugar, and then no problem to take the vitamin C.
Yeah, of course, we have to advise is that when you do give vitamin C IV high dose, you do need to watch out for urine output. So of course, when you go very high dose, you should measure, test for the G6PD enzyme. Normally, at least under 6 grams a day. Orally, don't worry, because we can't get a high level. But if you give IV vitamin C, research shows that under 6 grams, actually a lot of people at ISOM think if under 20 grams, not a big deal. But maybe on the safe side, you check for G6PD and also make sure the patients have urine output that's sufficient, that doesn't have kidney problems. Otherwise, you don't have to worry about it.
Okay, so there are 2 more questions. One is, where do you get the Total Cell the product?
Well, Total Cell is our own. This is basically how it came about. Well, I believe in, again, total view, holistic view. Vitamin C, vitamin D, you can't choose but either one of them. You want both, right? So vitamin A, B, all these things we need. So early on, one of the things I've been particularly interested in is mitochondrial energy, because I like to play badminton. I've been playing for 10 years, and I don't want to always lose, right? Not only, we want to win a few games once in a while. And I play against people on the court half my age. I told you I was 38, but that was many years ago. So how to increase my endurability? And that has been always my question. And every conference I go, I ask mitochondria and magnesium. So early on, what I did was I began to buy these vitamins, nutrients, and I found myself taking a lot, like 30-some capsules, tablets. Unfortunately, today on the market, there's really so everybody is promoting their own. To be healthy, we just can't take one thing. You got to need all of these things. So basically, eventually, I took these things. I felt better. My energy was improving. And so basically, I took these things to my parents, they improved too, but they told me, well, that's too much. So that's how I worked with a compounding pharmacy. I said, can you do this, change it, getting rid of the things I don't want? Because, for example, vitamin C, the recommended dosing in the United States is still only one, I think it's 90 milligram, but you can buy 1,000 milligram vitamin C on the market. But unfortunately, a lot of it is the filler. It's inert material. So I said, I don't want that, because when you take that large dose, that can become a problem. So what happened was that I got rid of all these additives and only wanted the active nutrients, and I put them together. That's what I call a total cell, because everything. Couple of things. One is that the dose, I believe, I follow optimal daily dose rather than RDA. We all know RDA dosing is insufficient. That's number one. Number two, Dr. Thomas Levy can tell you better, but I believe we don't need a calcium supplementation. So make sure I don't have calcium. All multivitamin supplements on the market contain calcium. I against it. Also, iron. You don't want extra iron. A lot of people, middle-aged and older, have extra iron. And antioxidants, I already mentioned. That's very critical. Today, another reason is because our dietary amounts of antioxidants are down, particularly in processed foods. And also, toxins in the environment are increasing. These are all toxins, pro-oxidants. So we need more. For example, we talk about omega-3. Omega-3 in America, you've seen research probably, omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. Normally it should be probably 1:1 or 1:4, but now it's 1:18 or 1:50. So we know we have way too much oxidants in our body than antioxidants, and that's so I go up as much as possible, maximum dose on the antioxidant, and also the mitochondrial nutrients. Those are the things I put together, and I took every day.
Okay.
So I behave better. Actually, I just won a badminton championship in Shanghai recently. Yeah.
Ah, really? Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes.
Very good. So we're going to write the source down in our community.
Yes.
So about there's another question. Should we do some lab work before we give high doses of vitamin C, or you would say it's up to a certain amount safe for the patients?
Yeah, actually, 2 points we mentioned about earlier. One is the G6PD. When people, particularly in the Middle Eastern area, they tend to have a little bit higher G6PD deficiency, and they may have a problem if it's positive. But we have a way of going around it. And the second is kidney. Making sure the patient's kidney, because if you have renal insufficiency, yes, you may have a vitamin C crystal deposition. You want to avoid that. For people without those conditions, so far they're pretty safe. Yeah.
Is there something like a safe dose where you would say if you would not exceed, let's say, 15 grams IV?
1,500 per kilogram, that's NCI's guideline.
Okay.
If we go to court, we can use the
much more.
If we go to court, we can show that document.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So last question. They are asking if you're just working in the US or if you have a license in Europe as well, and if you're seeing patients in Europe as well.
I provide some online opinions or consultations. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I like to if I can, but no, I don't have a license here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should work on that.
That sounds interesting.
Invite him as a supervisor.
So you could come
so
sometimes.
So close together in Constance. And
That sounds interesting.
Why not? Yeah. We could build something like a consilium and see patients, and you would come as a supervisor.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Very good idea. Okay. Perfect. Vielen Dank, dass
you
du
very
nochmal da warst.
Dankeschön.
Ja, super.
Dankeschön. And then I better start learning Germany. I'm in German. Yeah. Dankeschön.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Danku, Dankeschön. Which one is German? Dankeschön is German. Because I spent some time in Netherlands.
Yeah.
That's Danku over there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And see you later.
Ulrich. Yeah.
Again. Thank you, Richard.